what makes one person more psychic than another? Is that even a thing? Does that even happen? What are things that may make us feel like we are less psychic than the next person? Are there factors that contribute to how we feel about psychic abilities and how open we are or not open we are to the idea of having psychic abilities? We'll explore this today on Third Eyesight. My name is Juan Francisco, and I'm a psychic medium and tarot card reader. I've always been curious about the supernatural, the paranormal, and psychic abilities, and I'm here to share my stories and interview folks who want to share their own stories with us. Let's get to it. So growing up, I believed that some people are just born mediums and born psychic, while others are not. And if somebody did not land evidence in a mediumship reading with somebody, they just weren't real, period. Since I started developing my abilities, I don't want to call them gifts because a gift, let's stay on this for just a second before I delve into the rest of this episode. A gift conveys or implies that something is uniquely given to somebody, whereas an ability is something learned, something that we can all learn. So I do believe that the majority of us can learn to hone in or to hone our psychic abilities and mediumship abilities. I believe we can all do that. The gift is how that ability shows up. And I've said that before. You've heard me say it before. I'll say it one more time. We all have the ability to be psychic and intuitive. The gift is how it shows up. Is it through mediumship? Is it through cards? Is it through what is the thing that calls our name? What is the modality that pulls us and that helps us to express our psychic energy and our psychic abilities? That's the gift part. So I grew up believing that some people are gifted and some people are just not, and they won't ever be gifted. But now I believe that we all have the ability, and the difference is what we do with that ability. In today's episode, I want to talk about 3 things that can determine the strength of someone's psychic ability. They're going to be number 1, upbringing, number 2, development of the ability, and number 3, our openness and our expectations around this ability. So let's talk about upbringing first. When it comes to the strength of our psychic abilities, there are so many factors that can play into reasons that these abilities don't feel very strong to us. Some of us grow up with limiting belief systems. We're told as children that we aren't good enough at some things, and that hurts our self-esteem. Or we grow up with people telling us that we shouldn't even try doing something that's challenging. And that also hurts our self-esteem because then we feel like we aren't ever going to be up for the challenge or worthy enough to be up for the challenge of whatever that thing is. Some of us grew up with parents who didn't believe in us or didn't let us be who we really are. For some of us as queer people, that is the case. For some folks who grew up specifically transgender, that can be a big reason that self-esteem has suffered a bit in their life. Although I can't speak to that experience, I can only imagine what that must feel like, to feel like you are somebody and someone else tells you, especially a parent or a guardian, other people you grew up with that you see as an authority figure or a huge influence on your life as a child, they tell you that you cannot be the thing that you feel you are. And there are also other limiting beliefs that can come from other places. Our classmates growing up, our peers, some friends of ours who loved us, but were also developing human beings. We're always developing as human beings, even in our adulthood and senior age. But especially as children, we are figuring out how to live in the world. And as children, we are human beings being raised by other human beings who may not have it all figured out sometimes or feel like they don't. And you have all these children hanging out together who come from different types of families with different types of limiting belief systems. And you put all these children together and they're interacting with each other. And they're mirroring those limiting beliefs onto their peers and their classmates and projecting things that their parents have been teaching them. So these limiting beliefs can come from not only parents and guardians, but from classmates and peers, even teachers, depending on the teacher you have, anybody. And of course, there is the biggie, religion. So a lot of us grew up with religions that told us that the only way to God is through the religion or through a head figure in the religious community. For me, I grew up Catholic. Although we weren't a church-going family overall, we were a Catholic family because I went to Catholic school, and you only could access God through the priest. That's all you could do to access the divine higher power. My parents had a more progressive take on access to God and spirituality, but that's as a child, I'm in a Catholic school and that's what I'm learning. And for high school, for grades 9 through 12, I went to a Protestant school, a Presbyterian based school, and that is a little more individualistic than Catholicism is, based on my experience at least. The Protestant school I went to taught us that the only way to God is through Jesus Christ, God's Son, and the Savior of the world and the Messiah. And if you're not going to believe in Jesus Christ as your Savior who saves you from all your sins and the devil, you are going to hell. So a lot of black and white limiting beliefs in the religious communities I grew up in. For others, it may be other religions. It doesn't have to be a Christian religion. It doesn't have to be a Judeo-Christian religion. There are so many religions out there and so many belief systems and communities centered around belief systems that offer very limiting beliefs about how we access the divine. And what I'm here to tell you is, we can access the divine right where we're sitting right now. I'm sitting here recording this podcast and I can access the divine whenever I want to. And you listening at the gym or at work or in the comfort of your home, in bed, wherever you are, in the car, you can access the divine right now wherever you are. You don't have to try hard. In fact, it's the opposite of trying that gets you to the divine in the most seamless way. But it's always there. It's not like you have to reach for it. It's always there. It's about how open you are to it. So that's number one. Our upbringing can really impact how open we are to psychic abilities within ourselves. Because if we're told that we cannot practice psychic abilities because it's a sin, because it's not a healthy way to access the divine or to access the divine in each other, then we're going to feel some kind of hesitancy towards psychic abilities because we feel it is a sidestep away from God, or because we feel that we are trying to be like God, or that we are working with the devil or demon energy. So of course, these fears come up. So whether it's self-esteem that we feel we're not good enough to do this, or it's other limiting beliefs that it is bad to do this, these are things that can influence how much we restrict ourselves from believing that we can do this. Number 2, development. A lot of people are born with very strong psychic energy and ability. I don't have an answer as to why I embraced my psychic ability as I was nearing my 30s. It just happened. I grew up fascinated with the paranormal, the supernatural, the fact that there are people who are psychic and who are mediums. I was obsessed with it almost all my life. And yet it took me until the age of, I think I was 28 or 29. It took me until, actually 28. It took me until the age of 28 I don't know how to say it. I want to say to experience something mediumship related or to experience mediumship, but maybe it was always there. I never was open to it, but it just happened out of nowhere. And the universe, the spirit world, God knows what it is doing, what they are doing. And they have the right timing for us in the human world. And so, that being said, I never felt like I was born with these abilities, but now I know that I was. It's just, it wasn't the right timing, or I wasn't open to it, one or the other. But I'm not really quite sure. I'm still working through that, thinking through that. So I do believe that just like how some people have the knack for, I mean, I don't know, when it comes to cooking, I'm not a cook. I don't cook very often. I don't like to cook. If I cook, it's something very simple. But some people just have a heightened olfactory sense, a heightened sense of smell, right? Like some people just know things by smelling them, or know things by, let's forget smelling, because maybe it's easier to figure out what something is by smelling it in a dish. But some people can just taste a dish and can tell you the ingredients in the dish, which blows my mind. And maybe it's the same way of psychic ability. I'm not quite sure, but I do know that some people are they just happen to be born with a psychic ability that is strong at a very early age, and some people are just not. It's like singing. I don't know why we have the ability to sing. There's really no use for singing other than for other people's enjoyment and our own enjoyment. But there really is no practical use for singing. But some people are born singing like Adele, and some people are born singing like Janis Joplin, or singing like Bjork, or like Lady Gaga, like Celine Dion. They're all singers. They each have a market that likes them and their artistry and their singing voices, but they're all different. And one can make an argument as to one being a better singer than another, or the next singer on the list. But at the end of the day, they're all singers and they all have audiences who adore them. And I think with psychic abilities, it's a little similar. There are different kinds of psychic abilities, but we all have psychic ability, the ability to be psychic and intuitive. And I'm trying to give this a little bit of thought before I say the next thing, because I want to make sure I get my words right here. We all have the ability to be psychic and intuitive, but it shows up in different ways and in different degrees, or two different degrees, and those degrees being degrees of strength. And I have no explanation for that. The same way I have no explanation why someone like Adele can sing the way she can, and someone like Bjork sings the way she can. It's just, or someone like Celine and Lady Gaga. I can't explain why they all have different sounding voices, but they do. And people love them all. Some people love all of them, and some people love one or two of them. And so that, to me, as my mind may change later, but for me today, that is a fact that we all have the ability, but it shows up to different degrees and in different ways. And when it comes to development, just being psychic, even psychic from birth, knowingly psychic from birth, doesn't mean that you can do readings very, very well. It doesn't automatically guarantee that, because there are different parts to doing a reading. There is how to channel with the least amount of filtering as possible, so you don't contaminate the message coming through. There is channeling and learning how to communicate what you're getting to the sitter. Different things are happening at the same time. And then there's also the development in regards to just getting out of our own way, because we can be psychic from birth, but if we get in our own way, we're not going to always be open to what's coming through, and we may want to overthink it, or we may want to disregard it. And development, psychic development, whether in a group, in a circle, a spirit circle, a mediumship circle, or with a mentor, maybe you're reading books, whatever works for you. These things help us to get out of our own way and to be more open to what's coming through, to what we're channeling. Development for me has been extremely important, because when I first discovered, well, first I was studying tarot cards and practicing tarot cards, and I realized that I had a knack for them. I never really developed with anybody or in a mentorship or in a group. I just studied it and just started doing readings. But for mediumship, I found that I really needed help with that because I didn't know how to communicate what I was receiving. I just received it and I just didn't know what to do with it. And being in a mediumship circle has really helped me to learn how to communicate what I'm getting so it comes across in an appropriate yet clear way, and how to not overthink what I'm receiving from the spirit world, because that is what gets in my way the most, more than anything. Kind of I tend to just like get uncomfortable sometimes because I'm getting something. I'm like, no, I don't think maybe I'm imagining that, but I'm not. So nowadays, when I channel, I am more apt to just say exactly what I'm getting at the moment or write it down immediately in my notebook while I'm channeling. So it's written down somewhere and I don't have to overthink it because I'm holding myself accountable. It's right there on paper, right? So if I would have just, if I, my first episode has to do with me channeling the soul of Ryan, right? And that was, in my experience so far. I mean, I think that was my first time I had ever channeled a soul, but who's to say? Maybe I didn't realize I was channeling at other times in my life. But let's call that the first time. I could have just had that first time channeling a soul of someone's loved one, and I could have just taken that and thought, oh my god, I'm a medium now, and started having clients book with me and set up a website and start making money. I didn't do that because I wanted to make sure that I knew what I was doing, because there are ethics that go along with doing this work. So there's that part of the development, the ethical part, learning the ethics of this work. There is learning how to communicate what you're channeling, and there's learning how to get out of your own way as you're channeling and not overthink things or contaminate the message that's coming through for the sitter. That's development. It's very important. And are there people who just have this ability and can just go ahead and just do it without any development? I think that's possible, but I don't see any harm in engaging in development. From what I know, there are some really great mediums out there, really talented mediums. And when I say talented, if someone's a medium, they're a medium. But talented medium, for me, what the word talent means is that they know how to communicate a message, and they know how to be of service to the sitter, which goes down to, or comes back to, how to communicate a message appropriately but clearly, how to be ethical, and as how to be as straightforward as possible for what's coming through while respecting the sitter and their experience in the reading. That to me is what encapsulates. That's what talent encapsulates in a medium. So there are talented mediums out there, and quite a few of the big ones developed their gift. They didn't just jump into it. They developed it. So there's a lot to say about educating ourselves when we want to explore psychic abilities. And for you, if it's not mediumship, maybe it's something else. Read books, go to a circle, join a community that's interested in this, find a mentor. There's no harm in educating ourselves and developing. The last thing I want to talk about when it comes to varying degrees of psychic ability is openness and expectation. The openness kind of goes back to the first thing I mentioned in this podcast about upbringing. Upbringing can definitely impact our openness, and that goes back to limiting beliefs from those around us growing up, our religion, our community. That can definitely affect our openness. Sometimes there is fertile ground for us to be open to the possibilities that come with mediumship and psychic abilities, but we refuse to be open. There's something about it that we just feel nervous about or afraid of, and we don't want to be open to it. And that can definitely impact how strong our psychic abilities are, how well we tap in. An expectation. If we expect to be like a TLC TV show, or like Tyler Henry, or to be like what we see in the movies, like The Sixth Sense, or in TV shows like Medium and Ghost Whisperer, we might be setting ourselves up for a lot of disappointment in ourselves. Every medium works differently, every psychic works differently. And to compare ourselves to other psychic workers, intuitive workers, doesn't serve us any purpose. If, well, this is the thing. We are all working with the same energy. I do believe that. We're all working with the divine energy and spirit energy and the other side when it comes to mediumship. But the way that shows up in each reading with each type of with different mediums, it really depends on the personality of the medium. That's what makes it different. I am a medium out of thousands, hundreds of thousands of mediums who are professional and running a business. Now, I believe we are all mediums, but I'm talking about professional mediums. What makes me different from the next person that you could go to for a reading? Well, personality and the way we communicate. When you are purchasing a reading from a medium or psychic, you are not only purchasing the experience of the reading itself, but the experience of having that message, that information coming through the filter, through the channel of the person who's conducting the reading. You are paying for that person to step in and do that for you. And if you don't jive with the person who's doing the reading, if you dislike them or they make you feel uncomfortable, those are really important factors to consider. So when it comes to expectation, it's important to know that we are all different. We all work in different ways, and to expect us all to work in the same exact way is very unrealistic. For those of you who book readings with psychics and mediums, having that approach will disappoint you because we don't all work the same. And for those of you who are practicing psychics and mediums and who want to run a business, don't compare yourselves to other people. It's just, you have to bring yourself, your personality into your work. That's what makes you special. That's what makes your business and you unique. You have to put your own soul into it all. It's kind of ironic, right? You have to put your own soul into your business or into your readings, but also take yourself out of it to let spirit share the message. But that's the thing. This doesn't exist in a vacuum. We can't expect ourselves to do readings and not be fully present. We're using our human bodies, our voice boxes, our senses, our sixth sense to share these messages. Spirit is using the physical, aka us, to share a message. So spirit needs us. It's not like we don't exist in that room. But there is a way to exist in that room without playing telephone with the message that's coming through. That's where development comes in. So with expectation, don't expect yourself to be perfect, and don't expect yourself to be like the next person you see on TV doing this stuff. It's just not going to serve you. It's just not going to help you in your development. It's not going to help you in your openness to all of this. It's so important to just be you. So the three things, I'll recap. Three things that could possibly impact how strong someone's psychic abilities are compared to the next person are someone's upbringing, limiting beliefs from peers, family, religion, community, etc. Upbringing. Number 2, development and education. I know education can sound like a stuffy word to some people, but it doesn't have to be anything formal. Working with a mentor, working with a practice group of some sort, or going to a school, a psychic school. Development. And 3, openness and expectation. I have to say that number 3 is probably the one I have struggled with the most because I'll open up a little bit. Yesterday, I was in mediumship circle and somebody gave me a lovely reading and told me, Juan, you You have this, you, well, I'm, now I feel a little vain and prideful, but this is what they told me, and it was a good reminder, and it's something we can all hear. She said, you have what it takes. Don't doubt yourself anymore. You don't like to be at the front. And it's time for you to get comfortable with being at the front and putting yourself forward. And you can do this. You sometimes doubt it, but you can do it. And I'm paraphrasing her, but I told her, like, oh my gosh, sometimes when I do mediumship readings, after the reading is over, I'll think, was that real? Did that really happen? And so I call myself a skeptical psychic medium because I like the proof. I like the evidence. And sometimes I don't feel satisfied with what I channel, which is, I can't believe I'm saying that, but it's true. And often it happens that I feel like a reading went okay. And then the person afterwards tells me they loved the reading and they really appreciated it. They needed to hear what they needed to hear, or they enjoyed it so much. So much of my own closing offness or reluctance, hesitancy, and expectation of how I should be doing this work gets in my way. So listen, I'm not here preaching these three things to you and being all perfect here, like I figured it all out. I still got to figure some stuff out. And I'm still learning, still learning. And that's the last thing I'll tell you. Any psychic or medium that's told you, any psychic or medium who tells you that they have stopped learning, that they have mastered it all, I'd walk the other way. Humility is very important in this work. And the idea that I will have mastered this before I die is just, it never ends. Spirit is way bigger than that. That's just my opinion. Psychic ability and spirit, there are so many possibilities with this work. To think that we reach an end goal with this work, I think that's a mistake to think that. There's always room for growth, and I will always be growing. Just like I as a human being will always be growing. I've never met the perfect elderly person who has no faults or flaws. Just like as a human being, just living the human life, we are always growing and we make mistakes. So too as intuitive and psychic workers and mediums. There's always room for growth. There's room for learning. I hope that this episode inspired you a bit to consider, well, not comparing yourself to the next person, and also to consider how maybe some limiting beliefs or your openness or lack thereof, how they may be impacting how you tap into your psychic abilities. I'm curious to hear if y'all have any thoughts about any of this, and maybe if you want to share your own journey with psychic abilities and being open or not open. I welcome all of those comments, all of those stories. And the last thing I'll say, the last thing I'll say, because they want me to say something, and I'm telling you, Spirit wants me to say something. I never do this on a podcast, but they want me to say something. They want me to reiterate, just know that you have the power. You have the power to be psychic because you have psychic energy in you. Just find the thing that helps you express it. Hey, you don't have to do readings. Maybe it's art. Maybe it's music. Maybe it's sports. There are ways to channel this energy that can be more than just a reading. Although I would encourage you to look into doing readings. Practice with a friend. Practice with someone you trust, someone who'd be open to this. But I do believe that psychic energy and creative energy go hand in hand sometimes. And it's not a surprise to me that a lot of artists feel like they get the ideas for their works. They feel like they get it from a muse or from somewhere else, the divine. There's no mistaking that. That's totally believable to me. So take your psychic energy that you feel you have or that you're curious about, or you're curious about tapping into or developing, and see what's comfortable for you. You don't have to read tarot cards. You don't have to be a medium. There's no one's forcing you, and Spirit wants you to be happy expressing yourself the way you want to. So please know that. Please know, just don't compare yourself. You have the ability. You have the psychic energy in you, and just find the thing that resonates with you, that helps you express that energy. With that, I will leave you to the rest of your day. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day. If you have a question or topic you want me to cover on Third Eyesight, head to my website, juanfranciscospirit.com/contact, and send a message my way. If you really enjoyed this episode, leave a review wherever you listen. I'd really appreciate it.